Greetings, ladies and melons, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators Book 2. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 21. Memory transcription subject, Taylor Trench, human colonist. Date standardized human time, March 21st, 2160. My gaze wasn't sure where to settle, between the 6 lazing diplomats from each species. Every set of eyes were on me, from the orchard, who had their tail leg curved beneath her like a mermaid, to the curled-up Smiggly, to the Tromble, whose eye sockets was evidently made of metal. I approached the table with a sheepish posture and watched Charisse tiptoe forward with trepidation. However, it was Grest who seemed to be the most uncomfortable of us all, standing in his room. The Krev diplomat stood from his chair to greet my friend, his expression brimming with reverence and pride. The ring collector became more hunched over, like he was resisting the urge to curl up into a ball. If the effervescent leader noticed, he gave no indication of it. "Grass, it isn't my pleasure to see you. I do not know how you convinced the humans to tell you the truth, but you came through once again," the delegate announced, "the greatest miracle worker of a generation." "Delegate Resson." Grace's eyes flicked towards me, suddenly communicating that all he did was get bludgeoned over the head and scream at me. "I hope that the planetary board is briefed on everything I documented about the humans. We have a moral duty to help these downtrodden refugees, after we've unwittingly worsened their plight." A Resket pointed a beak straight at me, his long, pink-feathered neck holding eerily still. "It was impossible to know that the humans were refugees. When they hid away their lives and their faces, they pushed us away to return and didn't honor their bargains, not to mention everything they did was a lie or an omission." "I'd like to apologize for that," I piped up tentatively. "From our point of view, every species we've encountered wished us dead when they saw our eyes. You're clearly a more powerful group of species. We knew that even before we witnessed your tech levels here. We didn't want you to finish us off." "No, I understand that, human. After how every species has treated you, reduced the population to mere thousands, probably no more than the number of people who work on this floor, you're wary. I wouldn't be a fan of aliens if all I knew was Federation either. I'm General Radai, Resket Delegate, and leader of the Consortium Military." "I'm Taylor and this is Charisse. No fancy titles for either of us, but we're honored to be here." "This one likes to blow smoke up our tail feathers, huh? Knock it off. No wonder Gress saw through your phony spiel about covering your faces. Look, whatever debates we might have had in the past about putting an end to your little villa, that's over. All's forgiven, and just don't agree with the sole blame of this debacle being placed on our wings." Resson, the Krev leader, settled back in his seat. "It's not important to worry about blame or the past. We need to focus on protecting them from the Federation, now that we know the truth." "As long as the humans are through with this mask-wearing secrecy worm shit, everything will be fine." "We're going to be as transparent as possible," I replied. "Anything you want answered about our culture, just ask. We've already shared what little we have of Earth with Gress." Charisse straightened, raising a finger. "Hang on a minute. How serious is the consortium about respecting religious customs?" "We're accommodating of all faiths," the Smiggly answered, rotating their stubby arms. "My name is Vidal. For what it's worth, let us know if we violated any of your genuine observances." "I'm working on that. I heard what Radai said about the mask-wearing worm shit. There are multiple Terran faiths which use some kind of head covering legitimately. I feel compelled to speak up before discrimination starts. Are you going to look down on them for hiding their faces, or downplay the cultural importance of that?" Seeing the representative's confusion, I jumped in to elaborate. "For instance, there is a man named Arden, who is a Sikh. He wears a turban, which is a sort of wrap around his hair, as a sign of purity and devotion before his god. One of the nicest, most progressive individuals in the colony." Taylor cites one of many examples. Muslim women cover their faces with a hijab or a burqa as a sign of modesty. Catholic nuns wear a veil to show devotion, and then there's smaller symbols like yarmulkes. Radai shoved his beak into his wing. "You have all of these examples with genuine requirements for face coverings. And you didn't think to use one of them to explain your constant self-concealment. I won't pretend to understand, but that would have solved your private culture much better.
We considered it, but there's too many predatory elements to almost every faith. We could never hand over our religious texts. Even the most pacifist, vegetarian, and all that beliefs would have mentioned violence or hunting, regardless of if it was only to disavow them. Middle seemed to communicate their emotional shifts through slight wiggles.
Please do provide the information on your faiths and customs to our cultural sensitivity departments, Taylor. That's one of the branches with the highest number of SMIGLY staffers, I'll add. It'll be important to document and pass on human customs if we help raise a new generation of humans. That's what we're here to talk about, right? There's one natural disaster away from extinction, Grass ventured. I think that we all agree that we are going to help them. The question is deciding what each species can offer them.
Ryson's gaze floated over Cherise and I, softening in a way that humans would, glancing at a cute puppy.
Your proposal for the ectogenesis was clever, but I believe that would be a Tromboli's department, Avala. Would you care to do the others?
The Trombol delegate turned her head fully towards me, and with the reptile addressing me, I could no longer avoid looking at her uncanny features. One of her eyes was missing altogether, replaced by a central robotic socket and metal splotches that were melded down onto the side of her face. Where her iris should have been, there was only a lapis blue glow. When I fully leveled my binocular vision on her, it was impossible not to notice that her face was just the start of the cybernetic implants. Every one of her limbs was replaced by metal, not even attempting to hide their artificiality with fake skin. I would have never gawked at someone for utilizing prosthetics, except that I got the impression that Avala had amputated her real limbs by choice. The arms appeared to have more subtle manipulators, while the legs looked longer and what Gress showed me in the holograms. To the Trombol, see technology as a way to, improve their capabilities, like strength or speed.
Like what you'll see,
Avala teased, brightening her bioluminescent short in what I inferred to be a playful gesture.
The Trombol integrate technology as much as possible, going beyond where other species are willing to venture. Machines can do so much more than we ever could. Stronger, faster, smarter. Why not embrace the possibility of exceeding our natural limits?
It's just I've never seen it on this level. We have prosthetics at home, but nothing. Consider it a compliment that I'm continually amazed and shell-shocked by the consortium's tech level, I managed.
You can speak your mind, but I was right to chastise you. For what it's worth, you're hardly the only one to be leery of replacing parts of yourself with mechanical ones. We've been trying to persuade the Reskets to adopt them for military uses. Imagine the military implications, being able to lift slabs of rubble that are hundreds of pounds. Being able to see heat vision, and with an information overlay that maps the landscape and monitors your vitals in real time. Having the option to shut off your brain's pain receptors if you're captured, downloading information instantly instead of having briefings and upping process levels too.
Yes, we get it, Avala. You don't need to preach to the newbies,
Radar hissed with irritation,
spreading his wings to make himself even larger. We can enhance our capabilities without drilling out our eyes. Ever heard of contact lenses? You can have an augmented reality overlay and turn it off when the day is done. Meanwhile, you're a walking EMP target.
And you are just a target. Being 9 feet tall, being the strongest, doesn't mean much when you're the easiest to hit with a bullet.
Gress issued a nervous laugh, drawing attention his way.
Why don't we focus on the aid for Tellus? Every second we spend bickering is an extra second the humans are stuck in that hovel.
The primates should come and live on Abel if it's that shoddy. At least long enough for the construction to take place, Bison said. We'd like our own space, Cherise shot down the suggestion, clasping her hands behind her back. The worst part of our hovel was the back-breaking labor and lack of sunlight. Fixing those two issues would mean marked improvement.
You don't have to worry about that. We'll return everything that was collected as payment, and it'll only be a drop in the bucket. If you won't come here, it would mean a lot to us if we put this exchange and idea into effect. We'd also like to arrange a travel flow to improve much more than those basics. I think I speak for all of us in saying that we'd welcome all the help, and that we accept your hand in friendship. Tell you the truth, it's like finding an oasis in the desert. I'm curious to know the estimates for your construction plans and just what you plan to give us. Well, shit. Charisse is doing my job better than I am. It's a good thing that she came with me, because Gress should have never requested that I handle this. Humanity needs a better representative, but thankfully, this is my last hurrah. The light flickered on Avala's biometric eye for a moment before refocusing. I ran a quick series of calculations. With the Krev supplying the necessary materials, we should be able to 3D print a proper metropolis above ground and hold in orbital defense platforms in 6 weeks' time. I'm afraid that constructing a full cage and ring system, Rison's specialty, will be an even lengthier process, years long. My jaw just about dropped to the floor. Even lengthier. You're telling me that you can build like skyscrapers, road transits, that kind of metropolis in weeks? If that's what you want, we'll leave it up to telesettlers to decide the specifications you have in mind, and to review any changes you might need for culture or biology. A good example of orchids having 3 legs, so we don't do stairs, the tripedal delegate offered her first words. Ramsden shoots are much more our style. A mental image floated through my mind of an orchid traveling down the floor via slides. I raised a hand over my lip, trying to hide my smirk. If we were allowed to change specifications, we should request chutes as a descent option, because that would be fun. Actually, forget about going down a few floors. We should have these consortium planners whip up an automated amusement park, like what we used to have on Earth. Something like those train tunnels from the space rings would become the galaxy's tallest roller coaster, the centerpiece. I found myself getting rather swept up in the idea after the orchard's remark, though I tried to bring myself back down to Avil. Now that the triped had spoken, the Jastless representative was the only one who hadn't said a peep. I pursed my lips before lowering my palm. I didn't catch your name. Dioki. I don't feel the need to say much, other than we'll hook you up with FTL comms and keep the supplies flowing. Logistics are our department, so you'll have as much food, medicine, and commodities as you need, the orchard answered. Great. As Gress so diplomatically pointed out, we're not exactly living in excess. I hesitated, finding myself unable to bite back the question about the consortium's singular federation-like focus on one area. Well, Radai and Avala told me to be the straight shooter, right? If I may, I have some questions about the consortium. I've been told that you all take on a specialty for the group, but I find it strange that your whole species would only do one thing, like them. It's not like every orchard works in one avenue. It just has the bulk of the government backing, Taylor. This way, it devotes an entire planet resources and unites us behind a single goal. All species can feel like they contribute to the consortium, and it makes a clear cut who to talk to for what in any particular thing. Radai raised his head with pride. We have all the strength and complement each other. I agree with the humans' assessment of the Federation's reductionism. Their homogeneity seems unnatural. However, we found a lesson to be learned in their ways, one worthy of replication by the merits of its efficiency. At least in the consortium, our specialty is our choice. We could change it at any time, whereas I get the distinct impression the Federation isn't so flexible, Avala remarked. The smigly delegate chuckled. We all have things to offer you. My people will give you access to entertainment, an entire deluge of media and live performances. I will like that very much. I was talking about how I'm itching to see live music, I replied, noticing the other representative's posture growing dismissive of the oversized worm's offer. God, we haven't had any new entertainment, certainly not with any proper production budget in decades. Radai hissed in irritation. Your species is nearly eradicated. You don't need fucking movies. What you need is protection, like Ryson said, and you can count on us to send personnel and bring you some real ships. Feeling safe does a lot more for morale than those damned concerts. There's no reason the two are mutually exclusive. That said, military and rebuilding are tops on our agenda, I responded. As a matter of fact,
I had some interest in joining the armed forces myself. Finally, being able to fight back against the Federation. Would you take a human volunteer, or is it only rescues?
Would we? Shit.
You're going to have to get trained our way if you expect us to fork over our ships. We have to know that you can be disciplined and up to snuff before we trust you with the good stuff. The Consortium military accepts all species into our ranks. It's just that, even adjusting for the other races' fitness peaks, rescues are the most capable of completing the grueling training.
Boot camp, that's something we know a thing or two about, Charisse commented. I think myself and a lot of the militia would be interested.
That usually scares would-be recruits off. Tell you what, when we start training infantry on Tellus, I'll oversee you two's regiment myself, see what you humans are made of, and toughen you up as needed. Unless you wimp out, report to whatever base we set up for you. Great, I'll be there.
I cast a glance at Gress, remembering that he was the one who encouraged me to follow this path.
If I'm not being too nosy, just how many ships do you have in your fleet? You're way more advanced than them, from what I've seen.
Over 1 million.
Dude. And you can really fight. You could kick their sorry behinds. Why keep hiding? You all could take them.
That's the entire can of insects, Ryson offered. A constant debate in these wars. The Krev have concerns about killing trillions of civilians, which would be necessary to truly wipe out these species.
Naoki parted her rostrum, a forlorn look in her eyes.
Those more in favor of intervention have argued that we're letting civilians die to the Arxor. It's like we're hoping those monsters will do the dirty work for us, frankly.
All that matters is the Consortium's safety and eliminating the threat, Rescott squawked. A statement that was quite in line with our colony's position. I just don't want to take the slightest risk of losing due to some uncounted factor. Scouting could expose us, and that's why you humans are a gift. You have up-to-date, complete information.
I narrowed my eyes.
I'll give all of you some up-to-date information. The longer we don't stop them, the greater chance they find another predator race like us, and wipe them out too. That's who you really are allowing to die.
I understand your frustration, and for what it's worth, I agree with the statement. However, the more time that we buy for ourselves, the stronger our organization grows. We can't rush into war. Consortium wishes to guarantee a swift and decisive win.
I bit my tongue, knowing that arguing with the species Gress warned me not to piss off was ill-advised. Questioning the Consortium's agenda during our first meeting wouldn't earn humanity brownie points. I would love to see the day where we made those bastards pay for what they'd done to Earth. But I was here to improve humanity's present situation. This pact of 6 species had offered us everything that we needed to regain our bearings, and then some. At least, with the Rescue's training and ship donations, we'd be able to defend ourselves if the Federation came to finish the job. We wouldn't live and toil in the underground hovels anymore. I know what every species is willing to chip in, except for the Jaslips. They're in charge of defenses and evacuations, right? I thought they'd be the most sympathetic, having lost their homeworld to aliens too. What about you? I ventured, making a sweeping gesture towards the fluffy 3-tailed quadruped. I've heard from the others, but I don't want to leave you out. Are you willing to help us out?
Gress twitched his claws. Taylor, you might not want to. Frenella doesn't speak much as a form of protest, Avala finished. I'm not listened to, so why should I speak? The Jaslip perked her triangular ears up, forward-facing eyes locking on the Trumbull. I'd offer to help you with your bunker construction, but you seem to have underground complexes pre-built. Can I give you some advice for free? Gladly, Charisse answered for me. Whatever that we have below-ground shelters or not, I'm sure that we can learn from your experience. Given your population numbers, I was going to suggest you build a bunker away from your settlement and keep someone there at all times, for continuity of species. As we both are well aware, you never know when someone is going to bomb your planet without warning. Ryson threw his claws in the air, tongue poking out of his mouth in exasperation. Really? Is anything ever not about Esquo? See humans? They want me to stay silent so they can forget what they did. Leave the primates out of this, Frenella. They never had a chance to evacuate Earth, and they lost magnitudes more people than you did, yet you still pity yourself. You mistake my rage for self-pity. It's a tragedy what happened to the humans, but you're going to take it as proof that you had to commit genocide. What I heard is that there were other options. Your military is stronger, You could have fought them, not us.
Red Eye rose to his feet, intimidating the Jaslip into silence. That's enough. The humans came here to get aid, and they've received it. Now, we haven't accepted a new race into our foundation, but it should be straightforward. I take it as a formality that you'll join the consortium. Yes, humanity would love the chance to be a part of, I attempted. Good. We'll be in touch to set up the proper channels to coordinate the process. And don't worry, I'll follow through with my promise to oversee your training. Humanity will run on good legs. You're dismissed.
The rest had snapped his beak back to Frendella, and I got the distinct impression they all planned to chew out the Jaslip as soon as we left. A significant part of me wanted to intervene and tell them to back down, but I knew Mayor Hathaway would have my hide if I screwed up the oodles of aid that we'd just been offered. We needed the consortium's bountiful assistance, and I couldn't challenge the Jaslip being tag team while acting as Tellus's representative. Gress was right about it being a necessary sacrifice to stop Esquire from meeting Earth's end, but I understood why the Arctic carnivores were bitter. It always stung the most when it was your planet and your people under siege. Keeping my true opinions to myself for what I hoped was the last time, I followed Gress out of the chamber in silence. Charisse was close behind. After casting a sympathetic glance at Fulnalda, I curled my fist into a ball. I tried to remember what was at stake. The Rescats agreed to train the two of us, along with Tellus's militia, personally. My new life, far from the political arena, needed to be a way to atone for my mistakes. It was time to offer true service to humanity, and finally have a chance to stand up against anyone who aimed to strike us down. End of chapter. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.